go, Ira.
Joining us on Setting the Agenda, Mr. Arvin Vohra. He is a Libertarian Party presidential candidate for 2020. He's also the former vice chair of the Libertarian Party. He's written several books on education and politics. Also joining us at the New York studio is Mr. Shalabh Kumar, a member of the Indian diaspora. He's the founder of Republican Hindu Coalition, also the chair of 2016 India Americans for Trump campaign. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thanks for having us on.
Good morning. Good morning. Good to have you in the studio. There's a lot that's happening in New York. We're calling it the Mecca of global diplomacy. 200 leaders, 600 meetings, 5 days, a lot of action. Yesterday we saw Donald Trump and Imran Khan meet. And today we are looking forward to the meeting between the Indian Prime Minister and the US President. Kashmir, of course, comes up in discussions. And Donald Trump keeps on saying that I will mediate if both sides want it. Why these repeated U-turns and back and forth on the part of Washington when India has repeatedly clarified that Kashmir is a bilateral issue and no third-party intervention or help is needed?
Okay, we do need to understand where President Trump comes from. He's a businessman and out of the deal. So, you know, whenever somebody approaches that if he could solve a problem, he'd be more than happy to mediate. But his position is very clear. He made it so clear yesterday in Houston at NRG by accepting Prime Minister Modi's invitation to come there and, you know, take a victory lap around the whole NRG arena. I mean, the show was a fantastic show. If I may say, it was more of a political rally for both Prime Minister Modi and President Trump for 2020 than anything else. So, you know, just by that action, in case of President Trump, you really should not pay that much attention to his tweets and off-the-cuff remarks. Look at his
actions. He's the president of a country. You should not pay attention to his statements?
No, not his tweets and not his off-the-cuff remarks. Look at his actions. I always say...
He's sharing policy on Twitter.
No. That's really... See, one day he's going to say, obviously, Z is my best friend. Right? And then next day, he's going to be 25% tariff. So that's what it is.
But what does that do to the overall process?
I think I'm going to take a very, very different take on this. I think Donald Trump's actions in this case reflect the hubris of American policy, of American foreign policy, in getting involved in conflicts which the United States does not understand, has no business or stake in whatsoever. So what we see is a very light version of the same kind of backwards policy that has gotten us mired in foreign policy disputes as we are now for the last several, for over now 17, 18 years in the Middle East. I think that the idea that Donald Trump is going to mediate this is absurd. And I think that it is a reflection of a bad and incompetent view of foreign policy.
So in the long run, how does this affect, to see the forest for the trees, in the long run, again, how does this affect the overall process of the U.S. and India coming together?
Right now, the U.S. and India have been coming together in ways that have been problematic for the U.S. Especially, and it's mostly been self-destructive. One of the worst bits of foreign policy right now is the United States H-1B cap, which is a cap on the number of skilled workers. The thing that the United States needs more than anything else in the world are the H-1B holders, and we've foolishly capped it. It is as self-destructive as keeping out computers and technology and oil. That is the most valuable resource on Earth, and the United States refusing to let people like that in is reflective of a non-thinking, uncritical foreign policy. Our position, the libertarian position, is to get rid of that cap entirely and to stop blocking the most valuable people in the world from coming to the United States.
Well, I will take a totally different view. I'm sorry, but I guess it didn't realize that.
Why did I predict that? Yes.
A very different view. For example, you have 85,000 people come on H-1Bs every year. They're already in misery. There's a backlog of, if somebody came in today and first got an H-1B, a typical 3-year and then another 3-year extension, and then applicant for, most of them apply for a green card. Their green card wait time, guess what will be? 200 years. You'll have
Why
to
is
take
that
it.
necessary?
There will be birth and rebirth, and then you will, because if you want to really fix that problem.
To that, cutting the number of green card holders?
No. First, you have to change the immigration policy. That's to how many people to let in. Eliminate country cap. Modify your immigration policy so that it's not just the chain migration, family-based. You have a merit-based system, and it's with the with Congress. And actually, there is a pretty nice bill which has come out, but S-386 and 1044, but that's not great itself, because that was good when it was 10 years ago. The backlog at that point was only 100,000 people. Today, the backlog in green card queue, and the backlog needs to be understood. What is this backlog? This backlog starts after everybody has certified that you are qualified to be an American citizen, you are not displacing any American, and then your queue starts. But there are 1 million people in the backlog today.
Do you believe these discussions will come up when Prime Minister Modi and Trump talk today?
No. Actually,
why not?
He's going to avoid the topic as well. I mean, he's going to irresponsibly avoid the #1 issue for Indian Americans, for immigrants in general, for the American economy as a whole. He's going to avoid the topic and refuse to discuss it. That's why it's not going to come up. It should come up.
No, see, because the government of India's position, and I work with both sides quite often. A lot, let's put it this way, and unfortunately, government of India is their position, is Prime Minister Modi's position, that really we should not get involved in this green card backlog problem or in this H-1B issue. So they talk very mildly, a little bit, and not a whole lot. Not a whole lot. A much tougher subject for them, and you should see the reaction from the Houston crowd when you talk about RIT. The whole stadium erupts. Radical Islamic terrorism. When you actually talk about that, just watch the entire programming. Where does the whole audience, whole Indian diaspora erupt in approbation, in respect of President Trump? That he is really following through the policies which he promised me personally in July of 2016, right, before the Republican Hindu Coalition will endorse him. And then, what has he delivered? Look, cutting off foreign aid to Pakistan and holding Pakistan accountable.
How?
Because he has done that. At the time when actually
How has he held Pakistan accountable?
Cutting off foreign aid to Pakistan, money is where it is.
But he's engaging with the Pakistani Prime Minister.
Look. He could engage, he could sit down. That's what I say. Look at his actions. If he can say, oh, Pakistan, Imran Khan, great cricketer, you are a great guy. Okay, but next day if you cut off foreign aid to Pakistan, that's what it really matters.
What is that showing? That's simply showing that a lot of Hindus on a general fear, a general phobia, is going to lead to, it's going to lead to Kashmir. Look at how well that's worked. Look at how well biased religious extremism has worked on both sides over there.
Which is very important. That's a very important issue. But the issue seems to be, an overriding issue, seems to be the U.S. effect on the Indian economy with tariffs. People need to feed their families. People need places to live. The Prime Minister Modi has done quite a few positive things as far as that is concerned. But what about Donald Trump? Donald Trump in U.S. politics needs his base. His base wants nobody coming in. And it seems that way anyway. Who wants to answer that?
I totally take a different issue with it.
Go ahead.
Totally different issue with it, okay? In terms of what he has done for, let's talk about the economy. U.S. and India trade. Before he came on the board, he became the president, LNG, which Prime Minister Modi told me on March 28, 2013, he was chief minister. Then if he becomes the prime minister, the first thing what he needs is LNG. Number two, he needs is advanced weapon systems because of the huge threat, not from Pakistan, but from China. two things, biggest things which they needed. That was what he would do as a request to the administration, whether it was Obama administration or Trump administration, and President Obama did not allow that. On the other hand, President Trump, in keeping his promise to the Republican Hindu coalition, to me, to Indian diaspora in general, that if elected, you will have the best friend, India will have the best friend in White House, saying all that. He has kept all this. He has kept every single promise.
I have to disagree. The fact of the matter is that the Americans want to sell the Patriot and the THAAD missile defense system. The Indians don't want to buy that. The Indians have bought the Russian system. So this is a purely transactional thing. Nobody is doing anyone a favor. But when you say that the thing that Ira was mentioning, Donald Trump's campaign statement is "Make America Great Again." For Narendra Modi, the buzzword or the watchword is "Make in India." How do the two come together?
That fits together perfectly.
How?
Perfectly. You see,
politically,
both are.
yes,
not politically. Even actually, I'm a manufacturer, okay, and I run a fairly big enterprise. So I know how it is. There is not really any conflict between Made in America and Make in India. Small, between friends, there will be some friction, little thing, $5 billion over $148 billion in trade. That's a small percentage. But overall, both economic, populist, nationalists. So it really, both things can work well together. If you want to really get into deep into it, and I'll even get you into deep into it. For example, our problem, America's biggest problem is China. $550 billion per year going away. It's been going on for that long. I'm from an industry where China, when they decide to attack an industry, they just take it out. $70 billion a year industry of printed circuit boards and PC board assemblies. From 2000 to 2005, they brought that down from $70 billion to almost just $50 million. That much destruction. And then on top of that, in 5 years...
What's the point?
The point is, see, when you want to make it in, say, make in India. Now, if you take, in electronics, I'm an electronics guy, in electronics, $180 billion per year we import from China. And China is really taking advantage of us, destroying our industry by industry, move 50 billion of that to India. Now, how is that made in India? That cooperation becomes phenomenal. It creates tens of jobs, thousands of, hundreds of thousands in India, millions of jobs in India, and millions of jobs, or hundreds of thousands of jobs in the United States. So it's overall trade balance for India, or for both. India's economy grows. They really have not established a manufacturing base. They've established a good software base. That's India. But in manufacturing, again, I'm from the industry. They're not. And there are ways both will coexist and will coexist. I'll make that prediction to you.
Somehow, looking at Arvin's face, I think he has the other side of the story.
I think the other side, and this to me represents the economic fallacy at the base of Trump's tariff-oriented policy. The simple fact is this: if American companies, for example, I work in education software, if American companies have to pay more for manufactured goods or raw materials or whatever, that hurts Americans. Tariffs are taxes that Americans pay. And when we're paying higher amounts for electronics, for circuit boards, for printers, for whatever, that hurts every industry that relies on electronics, circuit boards, printers, computers. China, by driving the prices down, is only helping Americans. It's not hurting Americans. But I also want to mention something you mentioned a little bit earlier about the idea that Trump needs to maintain his promise to his base to keep immigrants out. Trump has shown that he can convince his base of pretty close to anything. He has shown them that, for example, he's convinced Republicans to back bans on things like silencers. I mean, he's convinced Republicans to back gun bans.
But immigration has always been the first and the target, the prime, everything. The wall, keeping people out, especially from south of the border, and that was his promise.
And the key thing about that is the reason that works so well is because it's not because people hate immigrants, it's because people hate welfare. And there is a very high belief in that community that people coming in from other countries are coming here and just relying on social services. When you look at very skilled workers from India, and from China for that matter, and from Pakistan, you are not seeing people who are lining up on the welfare rolls. You are seeing people with a next to zero crime rate. You're seeing people who are creating jobs, creating opportunities, contributing to American businesses. They are the engine that keep American companies strong and competitive.
I would really like you on my side on some issues because you talk to Numbers USA, they just eat you up in terms of this latest immigration bill. There is overall we give citizenship to 1 million people every year. Out of that, skilled people is only 70,000. 70,000.
And that's a travesty.
And out of that 70,000, only 7% from one country. So you have essentially 4,900 people total. If you take the ratio of 2.2 for every applicant, so it boils down to really less than like 2,200 people. 2,200 people we let in, whereas we are letting 1 million people. So talk about merit-based. So that's what President wants. That he wants the merit-based, not 2,200. And he's in support of eliminating the country limits. But at the same time, what we do need to eliminate is the way they calculate. It was never meant to be in the 70,000 that your family members will be counted. But now they count those as well. And a country cap should not be there. It should be based on merit only. I am all for increasing H-1B number as well. But if you are going to create an H-1B, you must first reform the immigration system. I'm in favor of the Believe Act by Senator Rand Paul. A great act he has introduced, and I think he's a libertarian.
He is. We introduced him as one.
But Senator Rand Paul and his father, both over there, they have quite a bit of a libertarian trend. We agree on 90% of the things. I don't agree with them on 10%. I don't agree with them on Afghanistan issue and all that. But of course, he has been a big, huge proponent. He's increasing his bill, Believe Act, increases the number from 70,000 to almost 300,000. Now, where it is getting opposed, big time opposed, that is on one side, the Democrats want the number to increase, but they want more chain increase, diversity visa. They want more amnesty. They want that number to increase, but not the merit base. On the other side, the people, Senator Tom Cotton, and the Numbers USA, they don't want to see one more immigrant coming in. Right. That is 1 million, that's it. Not one. I will not give you even one.
The simple fact, because entrepreneurs and innovators and the people who are the great creators, they tend to vote libertarian or they tend to vote conservative. They almost never vote Democrat. So politically, yeah, of course the Democrats are going to support that kind of chain visa rather than merit-based visas.
Right. We're trying to wrap, but I want to take closing comments. We've spoken about a lot of issues that the two countries need to deal with, areas of convergence. There also remain areas of divergence. Trade is one. Donald Trump said that there will be an announcement. Do we expect that announcement today? Also, Afghanistan, Iran are areas where the foreign policy of the two countries needs to find a common ground. How do you see them going about it? 30 seconds, I'm sorry. But
foreign policy, the United States should stay out of Afghanistan and Iran completely. They have shown that every time they get involved in something like that, it goes poorly, it lasts forever, there's no clear exit strategy, it wastes money, it wastes lives. And in terms of working with India and other areas, it's military alliances with no one.
Sikh. The answer to this Afghanistan problem is the Sikh regiment. That's what I will just tell you, that we cannot run away from Afghanistan. Otherwise, instead of 9/11, you will have a that's United States. Then you will have a dirty bomb. You have to have a control over Pakistan and the Taliban and that area in order to live safely. If you can't live, what are you going to do with anything else? You have to have first a life. you have to have security. So that's number one. And Afghanistan can only be controlled by, just like Maharana Ranjit Singh controlled back in those days. I don't know whether you maybe know that story. I mean, he was the first Indian through Sikh regiments controlled Afghanistan. Otherwise, it's a very difficult territory.
We can't bring you. I mean, Palki and I could have walked off the set and just let you guys take the entire program. But do you think, on either side, what's going to happen? What is the concrete? We can call for anything, but what is political posturing? What is on either side? And what is bringing the two countries together? Will it happen? Not if it's possible, not if just calling for it. Is there a possibility of this happening?
Absolutely. I have said that. We have, for the last 10 years, advocated for 21st century to be Indo-American century. And it's going that way. Watch the trade number to increase. Increase is $148 billion, 300, 400 billion in the size of the economies. India coming up to be either the third at least, maybe even the second largest economy, and U.S. and India tied at the hip, just like U.S. and U.K. have been for the longest period. So it's in a good, solid progress mode with President Trump and Prime Minister Modi at the helm of affairs. There's no question.
I mean, we're talking about two great democracies that both escaped British imperialism. I think we are natural allies. I think that the hardworking spirit in the American dream and the hardworking spirit that you'll find in India are natural allies, as long as we can keep government out of the way, as long as we can keep those sanctions, those caps, those tariffs out of the way. Tariffs hurt both sides. Getting rid of all of them.
That's what Prime Minister Modi started out with: maximum governance, minimum government. We'll have to wrap this up now.
Well, it's, you know, when you have two strong leaders, it's almost like two magnets with the positive drawing, getting together, then pushing right away again. And I think that might happen.
And he mentioned Ab Ki Baar Trump Sarkar.
Well, we'll have to see. We'll have to see about that.
All right, that's all we have for you at this hour. We'll keep you posted on every development from the United Nations General Assembly, UNGA,